Hey, everybody, and welcome to Common Good Conversations, a podcast creating deeper narratives at the intersection of faith and politics for the common good in West Michigan. I'm your host, Nick Brock. Sean Skinner is away. Today, we have the privilege of being in conversation with Sarah Matwiejczyk. Sarah is Ottawa County's Chief Assistant Prosecutor and is running for Ottawa County Prosecutor as a Republican. Sarah, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you, Nick. It's an honor to be here.
Absolutely. Thanks for being with me. That was probably the fastest introduction into the podcast we've had thus far. Short and sweet. Typically, Sean and I will do a little back and forth, try to be funny. Sometimes we nail it. Most of the time we don't. But right to it this afternoon. But to get us going here, one of the things that these little bits that I have on the program is encountering candidates who are of Dutch origin and have these very Dutch names, right? So I've butchered a ton of last names to include Jordan Joritsma. I think I just said, I think I got it Joritsma, but he says it's like Joritsma, and then Chris Kleinians. His pronunciation is Chris Kleinians. So I'm learning as we go, and I thought I'd have this down by now, living in West Michigan my whole life. But I think I nailed your last name. Can I have you pronounce it for us?
You did it perfectly. It's Ma-toy-sic, and it's not Dutch. It's Polish, and it's something I married into, so it just shows my dedication as a wife to take on that last name.
Yeah, no hyphen for you, huh?
Oh, goodness, no.
No, what's your maiden name?
Gamm.
Gamm?
Mm-hmm.
How do you spell that?
Gamm.
Gamm. Okay, and what is that? Is that
German?
Dutch?
It's German.
German? Okay. All right. I'm glad we got that one straight. I mean, I think this is the first, you said Polish, right?
Yeah. And the funny thing about my name, Nick, is when it comes to Dutch names, you actually give it a shot and try to pronounce it. People just don't even try with mine. So it kind of works out really well.
Yeah, nice. It's just too many different letters not typically seen together and just let that slide.
No, my big joke is I'm wondering what it would be worth in Scrabble.
Yeah, that's a good one. When I was in the military, I had a friend. He had a similar last name, but it was Cherniak with a C-Z-E-R and et cetera. And I was like, boy, I don't know how I'd ever put that together without some help.
Right. And again, thanks for your service. I know that you served in our military, and I certainly appreciate that.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. So Sarah, just tell us a little bit about yourself. About who you are and a little bit about your current role.
Sure. I am a resident of Ottawa County for the 23 years that I've served in the Ottawa County Prosecutor's Office. Prior to that, I lived in the Grand Rapids area, so I'm a West Michigan resident my whole life. Been married to my husband for 21 years, and we've raised our 4 children here in Ottawa County during that time. We have 2 sets of twins, which is often one of the only things people ever remember about me, besides my crazy last name. And our oldest daughters just finished their freshman year at Grand Valley. One's thinking about nursing and one's thinking about law school. And our younger son and daughter just finished up their freshman year at Hudsonville High School. So I come from a long line of military family. My grandfather served in World War II, all in the Army. My father in Vietnam, and my brother graduated in the top 1% of his class at West Point. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, lots of extended family. My dad's Vietnam buddy was a colonel, retired, passed away a few years ago, but I always called him my uncle. He was around before I was even born, and his every month Sunday dinner with our family was always really important to make sure that my kids stay in touch with what's important and the people who serve and being grateful.
Yeah. Was that something that you considered along the way, joining the military?
I thought West Point was amazing. When my brother was going to school there, that's pretty much where our family vacations were all the time because he couldn't leave very often. So there's a 9-year difference between my oldest brother and myself. And that was our family vacations every year. And it's stunning. It's beautiful. The history is amazing, but I know it was really hard for him and probably not something that I could handle, to be perfectly honest with you. But I did consider joining JAG. That was something that I thought about. But family's always been huge to me. Having a family and having kids was really important to me. And the obligations that JAG has obviously takes a bit away from that. So once I started truly getting into what it was I wanted to do with a law degree, it was pretty fastly determined that there was no other route I wanted to go besides prosecution.
Interesting. Where is West Point again?
West Point's in New York.
New York. Okay. I since I was in the Air Force, I think oh gosh, what's the academy there? But that's in Boulder, Colorado. So I think of the mountains. So JAG, you can consider that. Here's just we're going to go off this little trail here. Did you ever watch the show JAG? Wasn't there a TV show JAG based upon like a Navy officer?
I know that there was a show. If you start asking me questions, Nick, about that show, I wouldn't be able to go very far with you. I remembered a show, but I don't remember what branch or anything it was.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't watch it either. So, how did you get interested in this field? Did you just have this kind of interest in crime? Maybe there were some TV shows or a movie or something that kind of cued you in and you're like, yeah, I could do this. This is for me.
Well, what started out my idea of going to law school was I have 3 very successful, intelligent older brothers that went into different fields. And I'm like, wow, I don't know that I can compete with those guys. What can I do that's different? What can I do that's something my family has never done? I'm one of very few girls in my family, and how can I set myself apart a little bit? So law school was something that I had considered. And in high school, early on in high school, my dad connected me with some different attorneys in the area and just kind of job shadowed a little bit, did some phone answering and thought about what I wanted. My dad was a police officer for a short time before he went and served. And going to the academy was something I had also considered doing, but I realized pretty quickly that wasn't for me. But the cause, the thought behind it, the justice being sought, the public service, serving the community was something that was really important to me. So I did an internship with the U.S. Attorney's Office when I was an undergrad at James Madison College at Michigan State. And I was part of the victim witness program. And it just clicked with me that, yep, this is what I want to do. I want to serve our community. I want to help out victims. And I want to do it while working for the government so that I can have a good balance with work life and home life. And it's my calling. It's what I've always wanted to do. And that went from one internship to the next. I was in Eaton County and Ingham County and Genesee counties. And I worked in all those areas while I was going through undergrad and law school, just from one prosecutor's office to the next, learning about what they do. And it did not take me long to figure out that's all I wanted to do. So that's all I've been doing.
Wow, that's fascinating. So, I derailed us a little bit, but tell us about the role, about your current role and what you do.
Sure. I am the Chief Assistant Prosecutor for Ottawa County, so that would be considered the number 2. So there's an elected prosecutor that's one of the 5 countywide electeds in every county, and then the elected makes a choice who they appoint as their Chief Assistant Prosecutor. So under the current prosecutor, Lee Fisher, he appointed me. So he is finishing up his 4-year term. So for that term, I've been the Chief Assistant, so 3.5 years at this point. Prior to that, I was a senior attorney in charge of the training of police departments and of prosecutors and our staff just kind of teaching any of the new laws that came up, maybe some trial skills, things along those lines. Prior to that, throughout my entire 23 years, I have worked in absolutely every position you can work in a prosecutor's office. So juvenile court, juvenile delinquencies, abuse and neglect, mental health, sobriety courts, district courts, felony court, you name it. And I've been involved, personal protection orders. We just kind of facilitate those hearings. And I've worked with every judge. Most of the judges that we have in Ottawa County served as prosecutors with me before they became judges. So I really have a good grounding with Ottawa County, the community, the bar of Ottawa County. And I can't think of any other place that I'd want to be a prosecutor. This truly is a gift to work here.
A unique place indeed. So now you are, this is part of your campaign. You are running for Ottawa County Prosecutor, and I want to just start off here by diving in a little bit. And I know that this has made headlines a bit, and I've seen a lot of local candidates running for, office against Ottawa Impact candidates, and it's has to deal with the recent Ottawa GOP endorsement convention. Many have spoken out and saying like, "Hey, this is an unprecedented thing here in the state and definitely locally, and it's taking away the voice of the voters." And disallowing them to select who they want to endorse and have when it comes, to voting in the August 6th primary election. So what's your take on what's happened with this endorsement convention?
Well, I started announcing my campaign in about mid-October. And way back then, it was pretty clear that the Ottawa County GOP had an idea in mind, a plan, and it involved certain candidates and certain candidates only. And even when I was the only one who had announced at that time, it was still pretty clear that I wasn't their candidate of choice. That theme has continued throughout the campaign pretty clearly, to the point where this unprecedented endorsement of the primary occurred. And not ever having the opportunity to have my information and my announcements put on the GOP website like my opponent, never having that opportunity to be a part of their website even after I asked. It was decided pretty quickly that they were no longer going to do that for anybody, but they had already done it for my opponent. And matter of fact, there was one month where they kind of trashed me a little bit. So knowing that their decision was made pretty early on without consideration of who all the candidates are and truly educating all the delegates, this endorsement convention just seemed to kind of fit in line with that. My guard was up, obviously, as all Republicans were, as to why out of nowhere this was happening. Why, for the very first time in history, is Ottawa County GOP doing an endorsement convention for the primary. And based on everything I just said and the fact that they've never done this before and what we've been seeing in the last couple of years with Ottawa Impact, it's pretty clear what's going on. And that's very concerning. So I want everyone's support. As a prosecuting attorney, we represent everybody. I have never once in 23 years of service in Ottawa County as a prosecutor asked a victim of crime, what's your political affiliation? There's a very important reason for that. They need to believe that we're going to come up with a just outcome no matter what your political affiliation is. Well, before Ottawa Impact and the GOP were tied into that contract, everyone knows the constitutional county contract that they wanted the prosecutor and the sheriff to sign. Lee Fisher said, no, I'm not signing that because I'm a prosecuting attorney. I take oaths of office, et cetera. It wouldn't be appropriate. Well, instead of the contract, now it's this resolution. So there's a resolution now that is required for the Ottawa County GOP. Keep in mind, this is Ottawa County GOP. This is not Michigan GOP or anything along those lines. This is just Ottawa County. That has some things in there that would clearly segregate certain populations of Ottawa County out. And for a prosecuting attorney to serve the entire community of Ottawa County, it would be inappropriate. It would set us up for potential lawsuits, appeals of cases, if there was a resolution that a prosecuting attorney agreed to that completely took people and victims of crime out of the category of acceptance. And whether you agree with it or whether you don't agree with it, it's just simply something that would not be appropriate for a countywide official, especially a prosecuting attorney, to sign on to. So when all those requirements came into play, it was clear to me that there was one motive, and that's to pursue their candidates as strong as they could, separate the GOP from Ottawa Impact and make it now a GOP endorsement as opposed to Ottawa Impact endorsement. And anyway, that's my take.
Yeah. Wow. Sarah, you said a lot of fun things in there. I want to pull out 3 of those. And I'll go back here. So this is about, you mentioned how the Ottawa GOP / Ottawa Impact kind of trashed you a bit. What do you mean by that? How did they do that, and what for?
What for, I think, is pretty clear. But it was a situation where I have somebody who's helping me with my social media who actually is not an Ottawa County resident, so is not somebody who votes in Ottawa County, but is a Democrat. And she helps me with my social media. And she put a really sweet post just saying how she never thought that she would be helping or supporting a Republican candidate on their social media, and just said wonderful things about me. She's known me for a couple of years. We work out together. And they put in there that she specifically said and admitted that I'm a Democrat. And it was completely untrue. And it just has gone from there, where they are saying nonstop that I am a Democrat. And it all kind of started with that.
And so then you mentioned earlier too, like it's pretty clear what's going on, and it was, tying Ottawa Impact into the Ottawa GOP and vice versa. So I'd like to hear your opinion, because if you're familiar at all, there was this MLive poll done a while back, commissioned by MLive, and it talked to voters, and one of the takeaways was that a lot of voters in Ottawa County don't know what's going on with local politics, especially when it comes to the things that we're talking about. So when you say it's pretty clear, how would you express that to a voter who has no idea what's going on?
It's just rebranding. When there starts becoming negativity in any type of a situation or a brand, the goal is to rebrand and to divert people's attention to a different slogan or a different name until that one gets realized that one's the same group as it was before. It also develops different people. So more people get involved and it expands or it gets smaller. But I think that's the easiest way for me to explain this. It's just a rebranding.
And then the last thing that you said there was this constitutional county resolution and how it would clearly segregate, and I forget how you put it, but groups or peoples. Could you explain that a little bit further as well?
Sure. And I've also been told that, I said about not signing a contract and then there's a resolution. So there's 2 different things. The contract was something in the past. The resolution is something now. So I've also been told that there's no contract that was being required to sign. And that's correct for this one. This one is the resolution to be agreed to. It's hard not to agree with almost everything in that resolution. Constitutional rights, all of them, not just the second, but certainly the second. However, it very clearly dictates, and again, whether you believe it or not, you just have to think about the connotations of a prosecutor agreeing to this type of resolution, that people are created man and woman as God created them, that marriage should be between only one woman and one man. And then there's another section about disseminating the IRS. So those are the 3 glaring ones that I would just say, as a prosecuting attorney representing all the people of Ottawa County, if any person within Ottawa County is a victim of crime, is a defendant of crime or accused of crime, they will be handled fairly and justly. And the connotation that would be involved by publicly agreeing to any type of resolution like that would be devastating. I mean, you want to talk about lawsuits? Let's just add to them.
Yeah, add to the 5 already. So there's, we've kind of hit upon this a little bit already, but the Ottawa Impact and the GOP, they make these accusations against you that you're a Democrat because a Democrat friend of yours is being friendly or saying friendly things about you, and this is something that we've seen in the county ever since Ottawa Impact took leadership, is that they're trying to, in my opinion, make those longtime Republicans who have the bona fides to go along with them, make them look like they're Democrats when they talk to voters who may be Democrats or independents or anybody who is different from what Ottawa Impact thinks. Do you have any fear? So I'll say just a little bit more. They in the last election cycle, a couple of the Republicans were censured by the party, like Phil Kyers, Roger Bergman, Greg DeYoung. And this was really because they spoke to me. They had an endorsement from us as a common good candidate. And then they spoke with another organization, the Ottawa Integrity PAC. And they were like, oh, okay, you're talking to Democrat voters getting into election interference and this kind of collusion, if you will. So do you have any fear of being censured by the party, or are you just past that?
They censored me from the beginning without having any idea who I am, talking to any of my family, my friends, knowing who I am. Anybody who knows me, I think, absolutely laughs. Well, I can tell you, absolutely laughs when I tell them that I'm being described as a Democrat. The sad thing is you're either Ottawa Impact Republican or you're a Democrat. And that concept right there is just, it's ludicrous. It's crazy. And the fact that if you agree with somebody 90 or 95%, but that last 5 or 10% you don't necessarily always agree with, or you can't outwardly agree with, or however you might say it, suddenly makes you the opposite end of the spectrum. And I just think it's a means to segregate candidates, to mislead the voters, and there's simply no backing to it. The fact that I'm talking to you, Nick, does not make me any more or less a Republican in any way, shape, or form. And for someone to say, oh, she's talking to Nick, she must be a Democrat, to me is ridiculous, because I think you and I would have some really heightened conversations about our different political views. But you know what I think we could do? We could end up doing just fine, having great conversations, agreeing to disagree in some areas, agreeing in some other areas, and move on and continue to have another podcast next month. And that's the way that it should be. I learn more about my beliefs every time I have a conversation with somebody, whether they agree with me or whether they disagree with me. And that's the way the world should be. Everything right now in Ottawa County is so angry and it's so separate. People who were friends for decades aren't friends anymore because of rumors and beliefs. It just, to me, is, well, it's sad.
Yeah, this idea of, this is what should be, right? Being able to talk with people within the community who might have differences, but being able to work with them, that should be something to do and something strived for. Is that within your campaign experience thus far, when you go out, knock doors and meet folks, and then, within your network of influence, family and friends, is that what they want to see? Do they want that? Is that what they're striving for as well?
Yes, I think a lot of people are feeling that separation and that anger that we're getting in our community, where they're afraid to put up a sign in support of somebody, or they're afraid to say who they're supporting, or they won't even engage in conversations, or One thing that I've seen that's very troubling, we talk about wanting to make sure our small businesses are taken care of. And our office has been accused of sending cease and desist letters during COVID. We never sent any cease and desist letters. So I very much care about our small businesses. One thing that I've heard from both ends of the political spectrum, both of which can be very disappointing, by the way, is that they won't even visit certain businesses anymore because of their political affiliations. So there's people who will say, well, I'll never go to that place because they're an Ottawa Impact supporter small business, or I'll never go to that small business anymore because they're clearly Democrats. And to me, that's devastating to our community. People specifically not going to restaurants and businesses because of their political affiliation. I've never seen that before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's tough to overcome here. So I'm wondering, out of all the controversial decisions that Ottawa Impact has made, what most compelled you to run for prosecutor?
Well, my office is in great shape. We have had great leadership for a long time. There's always ups and downs. It's a very complicated and often thankless job to be a prosecutor. Lee Fisher and I were talking about the other day, how many thank you notes have we gotten in the decades of our career? And we could probably count them on two hands. But that's not why we do it. I would say the biggest concern that I have is the biggest concern I have with my office is the lack of experience. You have people who are coming in and want to have these positions of power and authority, and yet I've never seen anybody want to have this true commitment to public service in these positions in the past. And I think that it's been made very clear by the positions that they've filled in our county that the lack of experience is absolutely devastating. So if you bring that into the prosecutor's office, it would be devastating. I can't think of a better word for that. The prosecuting attorney needs to have the passion for victims of crime, understand some of the goods and the bads, and truly understanding what we do and how we do it, how we work with the courts, defense attorneys, the community, law enforcement. Not always making everybody happy, but being able to do what we can to find justice as best as we can while having open communications with them. So the most devastating, in my opinion, to answer your question, is experience and lack thereof.
Yeah. Is there something that your opponent, backed by Ottawa Impact, is there something that they are out campaigning on that would cue you into that type of devastation? I'm just trying to wrap my head around it, and for the voter, like, what would that look like? That complete, just devastation.
So lack of experience, first and foremost, the fact that you just don't hear about the victims of crime and how to be an advocate for victims and justice. Really, it comes down to, and I'm trying really hard to focus on the positives and my positives that I have to offer the community. And I think that the other side is really trying to focus on the negatives of me as opposed to the positives of him. Not knowing what certain statistics mean and certain things mean because he's never worked in the criminal portion is obvious and apparent. I think that one of my number one concerns is he's very fast to say, I'm going to fix the problem, but doesn't say how. And frankly, doesn't know how because it's never been part of that system. And unlike some of the other departments where maybe there's a little bit of internal issues going on, there's not in my office. My office is happy, with who we have and what's going on. We are a very rare prosecutor. There was a article that came out in Lansing last week, I believe, by the Ingham County Prosecutor that talked about how many prosecutors they're losing, and they're begging for help financially to try to get prosecutors. That's not a problem in Ottawa County. We have full staff. We have one opening right now, but we're full staff of experienced, dedicated, life long prosecuting attorneys and support staff that this is what they want to do. And I'm very concerned what would happen when you lose, at least 60 years of experience with me and Lee Fisher, along with other people, how this office is going to run when we need more prosecutors as it is. It's a tough situation. So I care very much about our staff. They're great, dedicated people that are definitely overworked and underpaid, but they come in every day and they have a smile on their face. And I'm working really hard for them along with the community. Make sure we stay safe.
Have you had any opportunities to speak to Ottawa Impact supporters and provide them some of the messaging and clue them into some of the things that may happen? Have you been able to talk to them at all?
No, they're not receptive. They're not interested in what I have to say. And again, they can come back and say, how many times you didn't come to our endorsement convention. And that's absolutely true. I did go to a couple of their meetings when I was getting some social media information. Are you going to be here? You're going to be there. And I have. And I've seen these people. They don't have any interest in having a one-on-one conversation. It's usually some type of social media or public type of a situation. We did have something a couple weeks ago where we had a candidate forum. And if you were to tell me that they were interested in at least hearing my side of the story, I would probably laugh at you for that. They were very actively chanting liar, just angry. Whereas, my opponent gets a standing ovation. So, their decision's been made up a long time ago. Like I said, from way back in the beginning, it's been made up and they have that right. Are they a group that would be welcoming just to listen to what I have to say? No.
So then,
I do want to say, though, that I don't necessarily lump every single person in groups. I am not anti anybody because from both ends of the spectrum, if you're anti anybody as a prosecuting attorney, you are presenting yourself as being unjust. And I will not do that. And I truly do not believe that. I believe there's a lot of people that are being misled, and I don't fault them in any way, shape, or form. I also do know that I know people who are Ottawa Impact. I think most of the people in my circle were all thinking that Ottawa Impact was going to be a great service to our community initially. It's more the leadership that has truly concerned me. So I don't like lumping people as to no one in Ottawa Impact would listen to me. Nobody in Ottawa Impact would vote for me, because I think they absolutely should. I'm everything in a candidate that they would like. So I just wanted to be careful not to group or lump everybody into a certain stereotype. I'm mostly talking about the leadership.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's something I've been thinking about is the reasons why people were compelled to Ottawa Impact in the first place. And my thought process on that would be they wanted to see some change. They wanted to have a change of the status quo, whatever that was for them. Is there still like that change for the status quo that people want? So there's a lot of talk about, and I'll use a couple, maybe Josh Bruger, because we just had him on the program. Like, he wants a return to, boring, normal government, where people don't have to show up, like the public doesn't have to show up and keep tabs on what's going on. The Holland Sentinel doesn't have to write about it constantly. Do people want a return to that, or do they still want to see like some big changes happen?
I want to see something in the middle. I don't want to see us become lackadaisical in what we do. So I know people have tried to twist the experience side around with me and just like, well, we need some new blood in there and we need somebody who's done something other than just prosecution their whole life. Well, I think you need somebody who just recognizes that change is important and change is going to happen and change is good. And so I'm not necessarily saying that the wake-up call that we had in 2022 wasn't important. I think the goals were important and the time was unprecedented. This whole COVID situation that we went on was something I know I don't want to ever have to go through again. And I know my family made decisions based on it too and had beliefs. And, we were all not really trusting our government at that time. And well, probably not all. Again, there I am lumping everybody into one group again. So I wasn't necessarily trusting a lot of my government. So it woke me up. It made me pay attention to what was going on. That being said, I can tell you that I am very aware of the goods and the bads that I've heard about our community, my office, the people that I've been around. I've been listening to their concerns. To agree with Josh on one point, I would say I would love it if our community didn't have to know what their prosecuting attorney was, because that means you're either a victim of crime or you've been accused or charged with a crime. And when I started this whole campaign, people were just like, hey, if you knew what Sarah did, there's a reason for it. And I knew that. If you didn't, then you just lived safely in your community. And what a great way to feel. What a great way to live. You just knew that you were being taken care of and your community was safe. I would like for people to feel that way again. Like I kind of mentioned earlier, the anger is really tied with fear. It's a horrible way to live in fear and constantly be worried about your community. And I really feel like the opposition is creating this fear in our community, and the unrest and the lack of trust is just getting worse and worse. And so I would like less of that.
Mm-hmm. So if elected, then what would you do? What is your platform, or what are some of the goals that you have if elected?
I think that we have a really great office, and I want to continue and maintain all the wonderful things we have that keep us staffed and not in the papers like they are in Ingham County begging for money in order to get more prosecutors. But I do find that one thing that we need to do is we need to open up our communication with other organizations. And throughout my campaign, that's what I've really dedicated myself to. I've reached out much more to our police departments to kind of find out what's going on, where is their unrest. Everything is so electronic. When I started, police officers, detectives would just kind of walk into our offices and we'd chat about cases, and it was fun. And it was really great because I think we all agree that we have better communication when it's face-to-face and in verbal form. But now we receive everything on a piece of paper through the computer. So we've lost that connection with the people that we work directly with. Not completely, but to some extent. So I want to continue to bridge that gap. We have so many new police officers that have never met myself or anybody else in my office. And sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes it's not. So that communication is important. We are limited in what we can do to serve the community to a certain extent. There are so many amazing programs in Ottawa County that can be used with our victims to recommend for them after we're done with the services that we provide. So once we get the convictions, once we're done with that, where do they go? What do they do? Well, I've definitely met with a lot more community groups to get some of that information and bridging their systems with our systems and our victims' rights department and trying to be more a holistic approach to justice in the community.
I wonder, I think you've kind of expressed this a little bit. Now this, I'll pick up something that former Commissioner Phil Kyers said. He has expressed some sentiment and wants to, push within the state legislature for county commission seats to be nonpartisan, because just the political apparatus or the things that commissioners are talking about are supposed to work about or take care of are kind of just nonpartisan issues. There doesn't need to be an R or a D to talk about the budget or et cetera. So I wonder why is an elected position like the prosecutor, why is it a partisan position? And I would say the same thing like for a sheriff. Do you have any thoughts on that? Because I know you've said, you try to be kind of work outside that and to provide justice for everybody, but just any thought on that?
I've thought about this many times, and throughout the years when I've gone to different Prosecuting Attorney Association of Michigan meetings, that's been brought up. And initially I thought, why is this a partisan position? But the more that I have seen what's happening in a lot of other states where I've seen people on the other side of the political spectrum as prosecutors, it concerns me. And I think that people need to know your political stance when it comes to certain things when you're a prosecutor. For example, I have found in the state of Michigan, the Democrat prosecutors tend to be a lot more loose on crime. They tend to believe in third, fourth, fifth, sixth chances. The focus really seems to be on the defendant as opposed to the victim. Now, that being said, I am a huge component of our recovery courts. We are really good with our expertise in our job in order to understand what we can do to prevent recidivism in our county and try to make sure, bottom line, that we have less crime. And if that's rehabilitating people who commit criminal offenses, absolutely, let's do that. But on the other end of the spectrum, like for instance, there was a while where the Ingham County prosecutor was against life without parole. I can tell you that there's no way I'd be able to look into some of the families that I've helped throughout the years' faces and tell them this person's going to get another chance on the streets. So I think that's very important to understand about your prosecutor is where are they focused? Are they victim focused, community focused, or are they defendant focused? My husband's a defense attorney. He was a police officer and a prosecutor too. But, they do a great job defending defendants and getting those rights. That's not what my goal is. They're included, but it's with everybody. Pro law enforcement is huge. And I think that you see a lot of the news headlines where you see problems with the prosecutor's office. You're seeing an issue where they and their police departments absolutely do not get along. So I think that there are some things that are important about being able to tell the people who are going to vote for you that you stand for Republican ideals or you stand for Democratic ideals. Once you are actually prosecuting a case, it's about justice and the Constitution and victim advocacy, period.
Does your sentiment on that then drop down into the Ottawa County Commissioners?
I actually would probably disagree with Phil. I think that should remain to be a partisan position. I think you should reflect the community. I think differences of opinions are important. But I think traditionally Ottawa County has wanted the Republicans serving on their Board of Commissioners. But once you're a Board of Commissioner, you need to make sure that you are representing your entire community. But I still think that one should be partisan.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to take it one notch down. It's not exactly one notch, but it's down yet. There has been some, push for a school board position to be partisan. Thoughts on that?
That one's a little tougher, but I still believe that here in Ottawa County, they want to have that be partisan, and I would agree with it. That can get really controversial next. So now we can get into a really controversial subject here, but I think we all have seen differences in how our school boards are running things lately, and we definitely can agree and disagree on different things. But I think it's important for people to be able to cast their votes based on their political principles when they're voting for somebody on the school board.
Mm-hmm. All right, Sarah. My sheet says I'm out of questions, but so I just want to throw it back to you for a moment. Is there anything else that you want to talk about or share about that I haven't touched on yet?
Well, I can talk a little bit about more my experience. And like I said, my number one thing that people have been talking about is me being a Democrat. And I just want to just let the voters know who I am. What they choose to believe, I suppose, is up to them. But born and raised pro-life, I'm Catholic, pro-Second Amendment. I've taken 2 oaths for the Constitution, and I have upheld them my entire career and life. strong military family. Fiscal responsibility is huge for me, and I've never seen more concerns with that. As an Ottawa County employee, we are all much more concerned about our retirement. I still happen to have a pension, so I hate the fact that I'm even concerned about that. I want less control of our government, whereas, once again, I've never felt that our Ottawa County government has been more in control of our daily lives and our finances and our happiness, just generally, I can tell you our happiness. I have experience beyond just as a prosecutor in that I've been teaching for decades. I've been teaching at Grand Valley State University Police Academy. Matter of fact, I've got that coming up again here in July, where I teach police officers while they're still in the academy about testifying and how to do so. And I'm really working well with them and talking about our bridge together between our departments. I taught at Cooley Law School trial skills for decades. And I had so many people, just because of the passion I have for my job, say, I thought about going into corporate law, but you know what, I'm thinking about going into prosecution or criminal defense and really working with criminal law. I also teach for the Prosecuting Attorneys Association of Michigan. I teach their new prosecutors. I teach any class that they need for me. And I know that they've also asked me to participate in talking at law schools to try to get more prosecutors interested. Because bottom line is that's what I do. And that's what I really love to do. I'm not stuck in some rut where I'm just a prosecutor day in and day out. There is no day that's boring. There's no day that's a duplicate of the other. And every single face that we see is a new face with a new challenge and a new difficulty that we help them get through. And I really don't want to see that lost here in Ottawa County. Our prosecutors absolutely love our community and they love what they do. And it's not about politics. It's about caring for your community, having the experience and the dedication and the knowledge to be able to do the job. And that really needs to be understood. You can brand yourself however you want, but can you run the entire Ottawa County Prosecuting Attorney's Office? And that's what voters need to understand. At the end of the day, you're voting for an individual. That individual is going to be left in control of a staff of 38 people and the entire population of Ottawa County, the fastest growing county in the state of Michigan. If you are a victim of crime, or if you have a loved one who's a victim of crime, and you are faced with having to come across the Prosecuting Attorneys Association or the Prosecuting Attorney's Office in Ottawa County, who do you want looking back at you, telling them, I've got you, I've got the experience, and we're going to find justice for you? Do you want somebody who's had that passion their whole lives, who's been dedicating their lives to it, or somebody who says, hey, there's a position of power and authority at the Prosecuting Attorney's Office. I think I'm going to throw my hat in on it.
Well said. I wish I could land on that one, but wow, what
we still have more time to kill, Nick.
Yeah. I got one last question for you, because typically this has come up as I've talked to candidates and talked about many of the things that we've discussed here is how people get to be where they are in terms of their voting patterns. Now, a lot of what I've heard is I grew up in a family that voted Republican, and that's just the way it was, and that's kind of how it happened for me. So I wonder too, then here, why are you a Republican? Is this something that you and your family grew up with? Were any people in your family Democrats or et cetera, et cetera? How did that work out for you growing up?
My mom always tended to be a little bit more on left of middle. But my father has always been a very strong Republican. And although both my parents have been a tremendous influence on me, and I'm grateful for both of them and what they've created for me, I was the youngest of four and the only girl. And I hung out with my dad a lot. And my dad being a Vietnam vet and his Vietnam friend being somebody that came to our table once a month, and him being a retired colonel, just growing up with the military values, my dad, ever since I was little, had me sort out checks for fiscal responsibility. My mom raising me Catholic with pro-life. My family's always had weapons. My husband's always had weapon as a former police officer. I believe in correctly carrying, exercising your right to the Second Amendment. It is truly what I was just immersed in. And I think the more and more I got involved, just as my passions being for law enforcement and the military and seeking justice as a prosecutor, understanding that I don't want the government to control my choices and what I do any more than they have to. Letting me make those choices as a mother, it's very important to me. And I know I've been chastised for the cell phone case, which is absolutely untrue. However, as a mother, I need to be able to make those choices for my family and my kids. And I take that as something very sacred. So all of those values are something that I've held very dear. And for me, Republican values are common sense. And so when did I come up with the decision I was Republican? Yeah, probably always my entire life. But more and more, those values have continued as I've grown as a prosecutor, grown as a parent, grown as a voter. And that's where I align.
Friends, that's Sarah Matwiejczyk. Sarah is Ottawa County's Chief Assistant Prosecutor and is running for Ottawa County Prosecutor as a Republican to defeat Ottawa Impact during the August 6th primary election. What is your opponent's name? It's Todd.
Greg Todd. And
Todd.
It's not that I'm trying to defeat Ottawa Impact. I'm just trying to make sure that the right person is elected for Ottawa County Prosecutor.
There you go. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, and best to you as you campaign.
Thank you, Nick. I appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Listener, we'd love to hear from you. What did you think of our conversation with Sarah? Was this helpful for you? What would you like for us to talk about in upcoming episodes? Any guests that you would like to have us on the program, reach out to us. Also, be sure to leave your comments on our Facebook page under this podcast episode when it releases. And be sure to stay informed in 2024. You can sign up for our weekly newsletter at votecominggood-wm.org, where you'll receive podcast and event updates. Follow us on our socials on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And that's all of my end of notes stuff for you today. So thank you, everybody, for joining this Common Good conversation. Till next time, be the common good in West Michigan.